Okay, nieces and nephews, this is Tito Keith. We're going to do sort of a quick video. Um, and I have a series of videos kind of along this topic that I want to do that I think are very interesting, but there's so many subjects to cover, it's kind of difficult. We have to split them up into different videos. This one I think is going to be absolutely fascinating. I know it's going to be fascinating. A lot of people their jaw's going to hit the floor because it's information that a lot of people just don't know. Not too long ago, I was single for a while and traveled overseas to openly date. And I wrote a lot about it on social media and got a lot of positive and negative feedback on my social media, just about what I was doing, what I did when I was there, what's going on when I got back. Because of that, I've had men from the US, Canada, Australia, Western Europe sending me messages asking about travel to the Philippines, because I posted mostly kind of focused on Philippines and Thailand. They asked, why did you pick Philippines over Thailand? I got my reasons, some good reasons. I never went to Thailand, but I really liked what I saw. But men asking me, tell us how you did that, asking about passports, visas, where did you go, where is it safe, what's safe, what's not safe, tell about the food, what about scammers. Of course, I would intentionally always remind them about scammers, whether it's Philippines or Thailand, because scammers are everywhere. You go to any city in the US and go downtown, there's scammers. One of the really interesting things, and I've said before, I got positive and negative feedback, and I did just kind of a long post about negative feedback. And I could have done the same with this, but I took some notes and I want to do it on an actual video. But just maybe a week or so ago, I kind of highlighted some of the negative responses I got. And the funny part is that many of those responses are not very well thought out. People who are writing about a subject, they have no idea what it's about. They've done no research. That everything is, well, I feel like this, or I think this. And most of us, when we hear somebody say, well, I feel like this, my brain shuts down. When I hear somebody say, I feel like this, or I believe, well, this is what I believe, my brain just melts. I don't want to hear, nobody cares what you believe, nobody cares what you think. Show me some facts, data, statistics, some analysis. Have you put some thought into what you're wanting to say? That said, just yesterday there was a female I don't think I know her. She's on my social media, but I'm not sure how I know her. I'll have to go back because there's so many people on there I forget. So I have to go back and see how I actually know her. She wrote on my social media with a couple of great questions. And they were actually very well thought out. I'm observant, so I could tell she was kind of doing this in the kidney at men. But these were actually very respectful response, and they were good questions. This is somebody who actually wants some answers. I think she was digging a little bit. Okay, a little jabbing there. But let me read you, and it's very, very short. Let me read you her response, her questions. I think it's like 3 questions, and they're very short. Keith Pound's quick question: why are single mothers being blamed for men going to prison and not the fact that their fathers were non-existent in their lives? Okay, I think that's a great question. But even when I first read it, I thought, okay, well, ma'am, she's trying to put it off on fathers. But I can understand initially why she thinks that. But then the second question comes. Also, are divorce rates caused by feminism or the ability of women nowadays to get out of toxic relationships? Now, she just put women over here who have to get away from these bad men. Now it changes things a little bit. So I'm continuing reading. And then she says, but you are right. Most men today are half the men their grandfathers were. I wonder if that's the reason why divorce rates are so high. There she's saying, I had made the comment that modern young men today are not half the men that their grandfathers and great-grandfathers were. And what she is saying, she's suggesting that's another reason for the high divorce rates, is because men today are garbage, and they are not like they're as good as their grandfathers or fathers. Well, I would add to that modern women are the same. They don't hold a candle to their grandmothers or their great-grandmothers. Let's see. What's next? Divorce rates. So what I put in, and by the way, I should have said this earlier. I'm reading off my computer because I just kind of sat down and went, and of course you get on Google and look up some, because you can research stuff this fast. That's something I'm very good at. I'm very good at it. Making an argument, making a case, researching. Just something I'm good at. Let's see what I got here. As for divorce rates in America being so high, we can address that easily. Again, about 70% of divorces in America are initiated by the woman. Now, for those of you who went to public school, like I did, because I went to public school, so I'm slow, so I had to learn how to research myself. But you can do it too. I have faith in you. About 70% of divorces in America are initiated by the woman. So that means only 30%, for you public school graduates, that means only 30% are initiated by men. So men must be doing something really, really bad, or either men are doing something really bad that women need to divorce them, or women are just selfish. We can investigate, we can do a little research. The first thing that I did, you have to realize that what women, when you ask women generally, not all, but when you say, why is it that 70% of divorces in America are initiated by women, they have two main reasons. They say, well, because he cheated on me, or because he was abusive. So let's examine those for just a minute. Let's say, first we'll take domestic violence and abuse. This lovely young lady, she was very respectful. I got it that she was doing an anti-male dig a little bit, but she was very, very slick with it. I give her props for that. Absolutely, got to tip my hat on her for that one. She said divorce rates caused. She asked, are divorce rates caused by feminism or by women being able to get out of toxic relationships? So I have here, men are very often accused of being toxic in intimate relationships, but I should read this again. Men are often accused of being toxic in intimate relationships, but the numbers paint a much different picture. A June 2011 Center for American Progress study, that it might be a little bit dated, but the numbers, the numbers kind of go a little bit, but it does paint the picture for us. Center for American Progress study and many other studies found that 25% to 33% of heterosexual relationships had experienced domestic violence. So 25 to 30% of heterosexual relationships had experienced domestic violence. For public school graduates, heterosexual means a man and a wife married together. I had to look that one up too, so don't feel bad. So we'll take the high number, 33%. It says 25% to 33% with heterosexual relationships. We'll take the high. You know what? We'll take the high number. We'll give you a little bit of slack, but we'll take the 33%. But a DC volunteer lawyers project, which assists members of the LGBT community in cases of domestic violence, found similar numbers among heterosexual relationships. In their study, the Volunteer Lawyers Project in DC, they found about 30-something percent of those in heterosexual relationships had experienced domestic violence. Let's say but again. But their study found, while 33% of heterosexual relationships, it found that a whopping 44% of lesbian women and 61% of bisexual women had suffered some form of rape or domestic violence. These numbers alone strongly suggest that females themselves can be abusive and that bisexual and lesbian relationships can be very dangerous, even more dangerous than heterosexual relationships. These numbers also suggest that the safest intimate partner situation for a woman is at home with her husband. Lastly, I didn't write this in my notes, but of course at the top of my head, absolutely shows that women are violent. And this brief study shows that women are very often more violent, physically violent, than men. So there goes the argument, well, oh, you filed for divorce? Why? Because he was abusive. Well, wait a minute. Women are abusive at about the same rates of men, if not more. Let's go back. Do some more. Her next question was, is it single mothers versus single absent fathers responsible for high prison rates? And she asked that because I had made the comment that our prisons are not filled with young men that grew up in a home with the mother and the father. Are there some? Of course there are. But most of the men in prison grew up with a single mother. Why are we as Americans why are we not screaming from the rooftop? I don't understand that. Okay, we'll go to something else. I don't get it. When most of the men in prison were reared by a single mother, I don't understand why nobody cares about their sons enough to want to try to fix that. That's what I'm doing here. Let's see. If we say, okay, so what we're going to do here is very quickly go over single motherhood in America. And this is going to be fast. A November 17, 2019 National Visa Statistics Report for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they put together their list for all racial and ethnic groups combined. 39.6% of births in the United States were out of wedlock births. So that's about 4 in 10 for those you guys who graduate like me. You graduated from public school. 39.6% means about 4 out of every 10 births were out of wedlock births, that the parents weren't married. This is a Centers for Disease Control and Prevention study. Here's what they found were the highest percentages of out of wedlock births in America. In America, among blacks, the percentage of out of wedlock births was 69.4%. Among American Indians, it was 68.2%. Among Hispanics, it was 58.1%. Among whites, it was 28.2%. And among Asian Americans, it was only 11.7%. These are very important numbers. And they're important because we're not addressing them. That's what I'm doing here. Let's do that again. The Centers of Disease Control found that the highest percentages of out of wedlock births in America were blacks at 69.4%, American Indians at 68.2%, Hispanics at 58.1%. All of those numbers are astronomical and embarrassing. Whites at 28.2%, much lower but still embarrassing, and Asian Americans at only 11.7%. What are Asian Americans doing that whites and Hispanics and Indians and blacks are not doing? What is it? Now here's another good piece. This one here if you listen like I did, this one here shocked. I felt this in my bones. There's a child trend study showed that 15% of men father children with more than one woman. That should make lots of... I can't say too much about that myself because I'm guilty of that. But still, to say 15% of men father children with more than one woman, although mine was all within marriage. Those men, here's a good one. Those men have more children than men who have children with one woman. So you have guys over here who have their children with just one woman, and then the men over here, this 15% who have more children with more than one woman, they have more kids than this guy over here who's trying to do the right thing. But there's more. More than more than 30%, 36% of men who have children with more than one woman had 4 or more children. Let's read that again. More than 36% of men who have children with more than one woman had 4 or more children. There's a 2007 study by the United States Health and Human Services Office of Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation found that most fathers have had children only while they were legally married to the mother. Let's read that again. For all these women that say, oh, it's not my fault because I'm a single mother, maybe it's the absence of the father, because we're going to lead to a really good point here in just a minute, because we're almost done. We'll say this again from U.S. Health and Human Services. Most American fathers, 59.6%, have had children only while they were legally married to the mother. Meaning that the majority of American men have children with their wives. But it gets better. Almost a quarter of fathers, 24.3%, have had both marital and unwed births. This means that about 8 in 10 fathers, 83.9%, have had at least one marital birth. But here's the good part. But the remaining 16.1% of fathers have had only unwed births. So 16.1% of fathers in America, they've never had a child through marriage. They've only had a child or children, and it said above, children, some of them up to 4 or more. 16.1% of those fathers have had only unwed births. But it gets better. Almost all men, 92.2%, who were married when their first child was born have had only marital births. What an excellent, excellent message to send to children. Get married and have a child. I don't care how old you are. Get married, have children, but get married. Because the likelihood of you having children while you're married means there's a much greater likelihood that the rest of your children are going to be through marriage. At the same time, almost half, 45.6% of men whose first birth was unmarried have had only unmarried births. And we've seen it, 16.1 or 16.1% had only unwed births, some of them up to 4, many of them from multiple women, multiple children. Those numbers, okay, some of my notes. Those numbers clearly show that those numbers in America, we're talking about America, those numbers clearly show that the majority of American men are having children. Those numbers clearly show that the majority of American men are having children with one woman, their wife. The numbers also show that many single mothers in America are having babies by a very small group of the same men. And this is going to be hard for some people to grasp. But if you go back and actually write down the numbers on a piece of paper, maybe it'll make more sense. Let's say that again. The numbers also show that many single mothers in America are having babies by a very small group of the same men. And that small group of men are having multiple babies with multiple women. Fascinating. Especially when you hear about women talking about deadbeat dads or absent fathers, or there's only a few of them. Okay, let's go on. Single mothers must clearly take responsibility for single motherhood and for the overwhelming number of men in our prisons. This is the last little piece, and it's actually the shortest piece. It's about toxic masculinity and divorce, because our lovely young lady who wrote the message to me said that divorces are not, no, she asked the question. She didn't tell me. She didn't demand. She asked, maybe the 70% of divorces filed by women are not because of femininity, but because of masculinity. I intentionally used this article from, a September 28, 2022 article from Brides magazine. And yes, I did that on purpose. I used a female magazine to draw out these numbers. That article, again, it's a September 28, 2022 article in Brides Magazine. It referenced the following. There was a Kinsey Institute at Indiana University which found that among their test group with an average age of 31, there were no significant gender differences in the report of infidelity. And they found 23% of men cheated, 19% of women cheated. And to say that again, there were no significant gender differences in cheating. They add that the National Opinion Research Center's General Social Survey from 2018 found that women between the ages of 18 and 29 were slightly more likely to cheat than men of the same age. In that study, 11% of the women and 10% of the men cheated. Crazy. Further data out of the GSS showed that the percentage of women who cheat rose nearly 40% from 1990 to 2010, while men's adultery or cheating rate remained at 21%. So, and this is the last simple paragraph. If men and women, what we just showed, if men and women engage in domestic violence at about the same rates, that women are physically abusive, and sometimes more than men. If men and women, this is my notes here, if men and women engage in domestic violence at about the same rate, and women cheat as much as men, in filing for 70% of the divorces, women are wrecking their own homes, not the men. The footprints are headed in the opposite direction. That's the numbers. I hope there's plenty of people that watch this, and I really, really hope that if you decide to respond, you respond with some actual evidence and some statistics and some data, some analysis, and not just the responses that are not very well thought out. Public school kids, right? Like me. I went to public school and I'm slow. That said, you guys, if you're liking any of this content, help us grow the channel. Down below, down here, just hit the like button. Put a comment. If there's a piece of this that you really like, you say, you know what, that really does make sense. Or there's something that you don't agree with, or you say, no, I don't think that's accurate, or the way you put it is not accurate. Write it down in the comments. That's what I want to hear. I want to get some feedback. So maybe next time I can clear that up. But share this video on your other social media. And if you share it on your other social media, just write, hey, this is actually a pretty good video, but I don't agree with a lot of things he said, especially this part. He said so-and-so, I don't agree with that at all, and here's why he's wrong. Or if you like it, share it and say, you guys look at this, because he actually makes a lot of good information. Because in doing that, you're going to help us grow the channel. I think the last thing I wanted to add on here before I get X out of here, make sure and send us, if it's about the U.S., foreign dating, foreign relationships, the U.S., Philippines, Thailand, whatever. Send us a question, comment, suggestion. If there's a video you would like us to do, we will certainly do it. One of the very next videos we're going to do is about what they call OFWs. That's overseas Filipino workers. I'd never even heard about that until just before I went to the Philippines, and it's actually very, very fascinating. So me and Marissa both are really excited to do that. I did a lot of research, from governmental statistics and stuff like that. So I'm going to have that whole side of the house, right? And give some of the history, the actual history through the government, what the government has done. Excuse me. And of course, Marissa knows family members or friends. We won't mention names or anything, but she has a very intimate association with OFWs. So she's really going to know that side of the house. And then as she does that, I'm going to put in some of the statistics and how it works. So we're both really excited about that. You guys, nieces, nephews, this is Tito Keith. I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, share. See you next time.